Okay, so good day everyone. So for today's discussion, I will discuss about the psychoanalytic theory by Sigmund Freud. So please study this lesson and be familiarized with the theory of Sigmund Freud because you can use this as your future references, and this is also included in the licensure examination for teachers. So let's now proceed to the overview of the psychoanalytic theory. So when you hear the psychoanalysis or the psychoanalytic theory, always remember that it is closely tied to the name Sigmund Freud. So this theory focuses on the unconscious mind and human drives. So his work is studied today because it delves into a fundamental of human behavior, the sex aggression, and the complexities of the unconscious mind. So the question here is why Freud's theory is still fascinating. So there are several reasons why Freud continues to capture attention. First, it focuses on the human drives. It is universal, the sex and aggression. Second one is his ideas spread globally through a dedicated group of followers. And finally, Freud's command of language made his work not only intellectually stimulating but also compelling to read. Next is the foundations of Freud's theory. So, Freud developed his theory through the direct experience with patients. So, analyzing his own dreams and extensive reading in both science and humanity. So, over a 50-year career, his theory evolved constantly, reflecting new observations and insights. So, although Freud considered himself as a scientist, his methods were quite different from today's standards. So he relied on deductive reasoning and subjective observations. So this is from a small, mostly the upper middle class sample. So Freud used case studies extensively, often formulating hypotheses, and after that, he analyzed the facts rather than conducting controlled experiments or quantifying data. So let's now proceed in discussing the early life of Freud. So Sigmund Freud was born in 1856 in what is now the Czech Republic, a former Freiburg, Moravia. So his family moved to Vienna when he was 4, so where he would live most of his life. So his father was very strict, while his mother was loving and protective. So they have a close relationship that later influenced his development of Oedipus complex. So we will discuss the Oedipus complex later. So as one of the 8 children, Freud often felt jealous of of his siblings, but he also showed remarkable intelligence from a young age. So mastering several languages and enjoying literature, including Shakespeare. So he chose to study medicine, not to practice as a doctor, but as a path to scientific research and recognition. So these early experiences, his family dynamics and intellectual curiosity and ambition shape his personality and laid the foundation for his later work in psychoanalysis. So, while Freud is in medical school, he experimented with cocaine, so which was not illegal at the time. So he used it himself and encouraged his fiancée, his sisters, and friends to try it. So claiming it helped with depression and chronic indigestion. So in 1884, he published an article about its benefits, hoping it would make him famous, but instead it contributed to widespread cocaine use and brought him criticism. So for the rest of his life, Freud tried to remove references to cocaine from his work. So though he continued using it until middle age before eventually switching to wine. So, in 1881, Freud started his private practice because he lacked the financial means to pursue academic research and wanted to marry his fiancée, which is Martha Bernays. So he spent several months in Paris studying under Jean-Martin Charcot, a pioneer in hypnosis. Jean-Martin Charcot emphasized that many emotional disorders have sexual origins. So upon returning to Vienna, Freud encountered cases such as woman's anxiety that is linked to her husband's impotence. So that reinforced his idea. So these experiences combined with his own reflections led Freud to focus on the sexual basis of neurosis, which became a central theme in his later work in psychoanalysis. So, early in his clinical practice, Freud believed that childhood sexual abuse was the primary cause of adult neurosis, so often involving older male relatives. So, about a year after publishing his theory, he revised his view, claiming many of these accounts were fantasies, though they were real to the patient psychologically. So Freud never denied that some abuse was real and later acknowledged treating actual cases of incest. So contemporary research suggests that Freud may have underestimated the prevalence of true abuse, possibly to make his theory more acceptable or avoid implicating fathers, including those of his patients. So, although Freud emphasized the importance of sexuality in emotional life, his own sex life was limited and conflicted. So, he was shy and inexperienced with women. So, marrying at 30, he viewed sex as potentially degrading. So by age 41, he had largely ended sexual activity, sometimes due to impotence and limited birth control options of the time. So Freud also blamed his wife, which is Martha, for curtailing sex, especially because of her pregnancies. So these personal sexual conflicts likely influenced his intense focus on sexuality and his theories of neurosis and human behavior. So, in his 40s, Freud went through a severe neurotic episode, experiencing anxiety, migraines, digestive problems, and fears about his health and travel. So, he diagnosed himself with anxiety, neurosis, and neurasthenia, which he linked to accumulated sexual tension. So, his personal struggles with sex deeply influenced his theories as he used them to understand and interpret his own symptoms. So, interestingly, despite these conflicts, Freud remained fascinated by attractive women, reflecting the ongoing tension between his desires and anxieties. So, Freud spent much of his life analyzing his own dreams, considering himself his chief patient. So, through this process, he uncovered deep hostility toward his father, sexual feelings toward his mother, and even complex longings involving his eldest daughter. So, by studying these dreams, Freud was able to develop much of his theory of personality and better understand how childhood experiences contributed to neurosis. So his self analysis was not only personal but became the foundation of the psychoanalytic theory. So in 1909, Freud visited the United States to give lectures at Clark universities and receive an honorary doctorate. So, despite his gratitude, he disliked Americans' informality, their food, and lack of public bathrooms. So, blaming it for his digestive trouble. So, however, these psychoanalytic ideas were warmly received. So, within a few years, the American Psychoanalytic Association was founded, and by 1920, over more than 200 books on his work has been published in the US. So his teachings influenced child rearing practice and even popular culture, helping to secure his international fame. So for his final years during the 1920s and 1930s, Freud reached the height of his career. So his health suffered from mouth cancer, likely caused by smoking 20 cigars daily. So he underwent 33 surgeries, X-ray and radium treatments, and even a vasectomy. So when the Nazis came to power, they publicly burned his books, and several family members were threatened or killed. So in 1938, Freud finally immigrated to London after his daughter was briefly arrested. So despite constant pain, he remained mentally active and continued working until his death in 1939, which was peacefully brought to an end by his physician using morphine. So let us now discuss the driving forces of personality. So Freud saw instinct or tribe as the core motivating forces of the personality. So they transform bodily needs such as the hunger or thirst into a mental wishes that create tension. So which we are driven to reduce. So this process motivates all the behavior and aims to restore a physiological balance. So the energy from the instincts can be displaced or redirected, which shapes our personality and explains the wide variety of human interests, the preferences, and activities. So, in this way, instincts provide the energy underlying all human behavior. So, we have here what we call the levels of personality. So, Freud divided it into three levels. So, we have the conscious, we have the preconscious, and we have the unconscious. So the conscious is what we are aware of at any moment. So like the tip of an iceberg. So for example, you are noticing the sound of music while reading a book. So that is the conscious. Next is the preconscious. This stores the memories and thoughts we are currently aware of but can easily recall, such as you are trying to remember what you ate for breakfast when someone asks. The unconscious is the largest and most important part, containing our instincts, our desires, our wishes that drive the behavior, like a hidden or fear of failure influencing how we approach a new task. So the psychoanalysis focuses primarily on the unconscious, since it is the main source of motivation behind the human action. So again, we have the levels of personality, we have the conscious, which is this is the contact with the outside world. The preconscious, this is the material just beneath the surface of our awareness. This stores our memories that we aren't currently aware of, but we can easily recall. While the unconscious, this is difficult to retrieve. This is again in the tip in the iceberg. This is below the surface of our awareness. So to sum it up, again, we have the conscious, the preconscious, and the unconscious. So again, the psychoanalytic theory focuses on the unconscious. This is the main source of the motivation. Next is we have the structure of personality. So again, Freud divided this into three key structures. We have the id, the ego, and the superego. So the eight, this is the most primitive, the unconscious part of our personality. So it contains our basic instincts and desires. So this is six, the immediate gratifications of needs, such as our hunger, the thirst, and the sexual impulses. So this operates again. Please remember that when we are talking about the id, this operates entirely on the reality principles. So the pleasure principles rather. So meaning it wants what it wants. So when it wants it without concern for reality or consequences. So for example, a hungry baby crying loudly for food. So without understanding of how to get it illustrates the Eid at work. So again, when we are talking about the Eid, it operates mainly about the pleasure principles. Again, it wants what it wants. Next is ego. So the ego develops as we grow and learn to interact with the world. So it is rational, it is conscious, and operates mainly on the reality principles. So its role is to mediate between the instinctual demands of the id and the limitations of the external world. So the ego helps satisfy the id's desires in a realistic and socially acceptable way. So, for example, a child may feel hungry but waits patiently until mealtime rather than grabbing food impulsively. So, the ego also using reasoning, planning, and problem solving to navigate the complex situation. So it ensures the immediate desires are balanced with a long-term consequences. So to um, compare the id and the ego, so that our example is if the baby is hungry, the id would react to get the food immediately just to gratify his or her hunger. While the ego, he or she would wait until mealtime to grab a food. So that is operates on the reality principle. Next is the superego. So it represents our internalized moral values and ideals. So this is formed through parental guidance and societal rules. So it strives for perfection and judges our actions, our thoughts, and the desires. So the superego can generate feelings of guilt, shame, or pride, depending on whether our behavior aligns with its standards. So, for example, if a child takes a toy that does not belong to them, the superego would induce guilt and teaching them the importance of the moral behavior. So the ego is constantly caught in the middle, negotiating between the selfish and the pleasure seeking id and the perfectionist and the moralistic superego and the demands of the reality. So this ongoing struggle explains why human behavior often involves conflicts or tension and anxiety. So Freud believed that much of our mental life occurs in this dynamic space, with the ego striving to find compromises that satisfy the id's impulses while respecting the moral limits and the constraints of the reality. So for this game, I want you to answer this in our comment section. So the instruction here is so this is the scenario, and you will answer what would id, ego, and superego would do in this scenario. So this would be your performance task for this discussion. So this we have two scenarios here. So let's now proceed to our next topic. So just like what I've said earlier, if there is a conflict between the id and the superego and the ego, it produces anxiety. So let's now first differentiate the anxiety from fear. So with fear kasi, you can usually point to the source like snake, you're afraid you're afraid when you are seeing snake. So, but with anxiety, the cause is vague or unconscious. So, according to Freud, our very first experience of anxiety happens at birth when we are suddenly forced out of the womb's safety into a harsh and unpredictable world. So this helplessness sets the stage for how we react to threats later in life. So we have different kinds of anxiety. Number one is reality anxiety. So this is a fear of real world dangers. So for example, if you are walking alone at night and hear footsteps behind you, so the tendency is your heart races and you quicken your pace. So that's the reality anxiety. So it keeps you safe. But if someone refuses to leave their home for a fear of being attacked or hit by a car, that's the extreme version of an irrational phobia. Next is we have the neurotic anxiety. So the neurotic anxiety comes from childhood when impulses clash with possible punishment. So imagine a child is scolded every time they get angry. So as an adult, they may feel anxious whenever they start to feel anger, even if no punishment is coming. So another example is someone might avoid speaking up in meetings because deep down they fear rejection or criticism. So even though the danger isn't real. So that's the ego fearing loss of control over the id impulses. Next is the moral anxiety. So this is when the id and when the id and superego has a conflict. So, fear of one's conscience. So, for example, if you lie to a close friend, you might feel overwhelming guilt, or even if your friend never finds out. Or consider someone raised with a very strict religious beliefs who feels shame or even for having a sexual thoughts. So that's the moral anxiety at work. So the superego punishing the ego. So, what's the purpose of anxiety? So, according to Freud, he believed that anxiety is not all bad. It's a warning system. It alerts the ego that the danger is near. So, anxiety pushes us to act. We might run from a threat or hold back an impulse or obey our conscience. So, but when the rational coping fails, the ego turns to what we call the defense mechanism. So, like repression, denial, or projection that we will discuss later. So, that's why Freud saw anxiety as the central to understanding the both normal behavior and the mental illness. So we have now what we call the defense mechanism, what which I mentioned earlier. So according to Freud, we all feel anxiety when our inner desires or our id and our sense of right and wrong, which is our superego, clash. So to protect itself from this stress, the ego uses defense mechanism. So this is automatic unconscious way to reduce our anxiety. So, number one defense mechanism is we have what we call the repression. This is unconsciously forgetting painful memories. So, we push painful thoughts or memories out of our awareness. So, for example, a man who experienced childhood abuse may forget it completely because we use the repression automatically. Next is we have the denial. So this is refusing to acknowledge reality. So we refuse to accept reality because it's too upsetting. So for example, is a person with a serious illness insists they are perfectly healthy. So that is the denial. Next is we have the reaction formation. So this is acting the opposite of what you truly feel. For example, someone who dislikes a coworker may act extra nice to them. So opposite of what you truly feel. Next is projection. So this is blaming others for your own feelings or faults. For example, you have a jealous student accuses his or her friend of being jealous instead. So that's the projection. You blame others for your own feelings. Next is we have the regression. So this is returning to an earlier stage or in a childish behavior during stress. So for example, you throw tantrums or seek comfort like a child when you are sad, when you are upset. So that is regression. You go back to your childish behaviors during experiencing stress or when you are upset. Next is rationalizations. You make excuses to justify bad behavior or mistakes. So, for example, after you lose a job, you said that I didn't like the job anyway. So, that is the rationalization. Next is we have the displacement. That is redirecting or shifting emotions or impulses to a safer target. So when you are angry at your boss or you are angry with uh you are angry at your teacher, you yells at your dog instead. You yells at the other living things. Next is the sublimation. So this is channeling impulse into socially acceptable outlets. So you turn negative impulses into positive actions. So for example, when you are mad or you feel angry, you channel it into sports or art instead. You paint, you play any sports you want instead of violence. So instead of using displacement, you use sublimation. So those are the eight defense mechanism according to Sigmund Freud. So again, for our performance stats for this discussion, I want you to go back to this slide or to this clip. I want you to answer this and put it in our comment section. So this is the first questions. So after failing her thesis defense, Maria says that professor never liked me anyway, so the exam was unfair. Is it denial? Is it projection? Is it rationalization? Or is it displacement? Second question is James is angry at his boss, but instead of confronting him, he comes home and yells at his younger brother. Is it displacement or is it regression, projection, or repression? Next is Eliza, who has strong hostile feelings toward her classmate, insists that she hates me so much. Is it repression, projection, denial, or sublimation? So again, for your performance task, please answer these three questions in our comment section. So we are done with the defense mechanism. Um, So, to sum it up, defense mechanism are unconscious strategies that the ego uses to reduce anxiety. So, they distort reality. So, we are unknowingly lying to ourselves. So, we have the denial, repression, and etc. So, according to Freud, defenses are necessary for mental health, helping us cope with internal conflicts. So we are now done with the defense mechanism. Let's now proceed to the psychosexual stages of personality development. So according to Freud, personality is largely shaped in childhood through interactions with parents and caregivers. So we are all driven by the same id impulses, but the ego and superego from differently for each person. So depending on the individual experience. So fixations may occur if conflicts are unresolved or if a child is overindulged. So each stage of development focuses on different erogenous zones, or this is what we call a source of pleasure. So again, when we are saying erogenous zone, that is the source of the pleasure. Saan nanggagaling yung pleasure? So the first stage is we have the oral stage. So this is from birth to 1.5 years. So um, since this is the first stage, where the mouth is the primary source of pleasure. So if we're talking about the pleasure, this is the erogenous zone. So the erogenous zone of the oral stage is on the mouth. So infants derive satisfaction from activities like sucking, biting, and swallowing. So there are two types of oral behavior. We have the oral incorporative or taking in. So this leads to dependency and optimism in adulthood. So, for example, is an adult who overeats when stressed or constantly seeks approval may have an oral incorporative fixation. Next is the oral aggressive or the sadistic. So this is a biting or spitting out. So this can result in hostility or sarcasm. So for example, is someone who makes biting remarks or constantly teases others. So that is the example of the oral aggressive. Another one is um, if you are an adult, again, if you teases others or makes a biting that may reflect as the oral aggressive fixation. Next is the anal stage. So this happens during 1 to 3 years old. So during the anal stage, the pleasure comes from controlling the elimination. The toilet training introduces conflict. So as a children learn to delay gratification. So we have again two outcomes. We have the anal aggressive. This personality develops if a child rebels against control, so leading to adult defiance or messiness. So, for example, an adult who intentionally break rules or is disorganized or messy at work. So that is the anal aggressive. Again, we have now the anal retentive that is develops if a child holds back, leading to a rigid, orderly, and stubborn adult. So, for example, a person who is compulsively neat or excessively frugal. Next is the phallic stage. So this is between 3 to 6 years old. So in the phallic stage, children focus on the genitals and explore differences between sexes. So this stage produces complex conflicts. So in boys, experience the what we call the Oedipus complex. So they unconsciously desire for the mother and fear the father's retaliation, that is the called castration anxiety. So an adult phallic personality may become narcissistic or seek constant admiration. So let me just tell you the story of the Oedipus complex. So Oedipus is a name of a man, which is he killed his father to marry his mother. So that is why we have the Oedipus complex. So as you can observe sa mga child between 3 to 6 years old, when you're a child, when your child is a girl, she is very um she is very passionate, or she is very loving her her father, while on the opposite side, when your child is a boy, he is very loving to his mother. So that is the Oedipus complex. For the girls naman is we have the Electra complex. So they shift love from the mother to father due to penis envy. So adults may exaggerate femininity or use charm to attract men. So poorly resolved conflicts during this stage can affect the adult sexual relationships. We have now the latency stage. This is between 6 to 12 years old. So the latency period is quiet phase. So the sexual impulses are dormant. So children redirect energy towards school, hobbies, and friendships. So these periods allows consolidations of the ego, and the superego, and reduces internal conflict. So, for example, a children focus on sports or academics rather than sexual exploration. The last stage is the genital stage. This is this happens during puberty to adulthood. So the final stage focuses on the sexual impulses maturation or matured and are expressed through socially acceptable means. So the successful navigation allows for mature love relationships and productive work. So for an example, a teenager might channel sexual energy into art, volunteering, or career goals before um, entering healthy adult relationships. So fixations from earlier stages can hinder this outcome. So those are the um, developmental stage by Sigmund Freud. So we have the oral stage, the anal stage, the phallic stage, the latency stage, and the genital stage. So we have, according to Freud, also he uses several techniques in using the psychoanalysis or the psychoanalytic theory. So today we will explore how Freud assessed personality and uncovered the unconscious conflicts through psychoanalysis. So this focuses on two main techniques. We have the free association and the dream analysis. So I will give you just the overview of these techniques. So Freud considered the unconscious to be the primary motivator of the human behavior. So it stores all our repressed fears, the memories, and the desires from the childhood. So the psychoanalysis aims to bring these hidden conflicts to conscious awareness, making the invisible visible. So one of the Freud main technique is what we call the free association. So in here, patients speak freely expressing every thought or memory, no matter how trivial, embarrassing, or painful. So, for example, a patient may casually mention a small argument at work. So, when explored, this might reveal repressed anger toward a parent from childhood. So, every idea, even small ones, can lead to important discoveries about the unconscious. So, free association is not always free. So, sometimes patients resist discussing painful memories. So, Freud called this resistance, and it signals that the analysis is approaching the source of their conflict. So, for example, a patient may avoid talking about an abusive uncle. So, overcoming this resistance is the key to understand the repressed experience. So, Freud also used the dream analysis. So, dreams are symbolic expressions of the repressed desires and fears. So, we have the manifest content and the latent content. So when we say manifest content, this is the actual events in the dream, and the latent content is the hidden symbolic meaning. So for example, you are dreaming about climbing stairs, may symbolize sexual desires, while flying may represent a wish for freedom or escape. So that's the end of our discussion for today. So I hope you understand something. And if you have questions or clarifications, don't hesitate to message me in our group chat. So for the performance test again, we have different questions, every topic in our previous discussions in this video. Please go back there and answer the questions. So we have two scenarios regarding the structures of personality, the ego, and superego. And we have three or four questions about the defense mechanism. So you have to answer it here in our um, comment section. So I just want to again reiterate the instructions here. So this is the scenario. So this is the scenario. If you are the id, the ego, and the superego, what would you say and what would you do during this scenario? So you have to identify here what would the id would do, what the ego would do, and the superego would. So that's the performance test. So before I end my presentation, I want you to leave this quotation by Sigmund Freud, where id was their ego shall be, who as Warsaw each worded. Um, so Freud's line means that the goal of the psychoanalysis is to bring what is hidden and unconscious into the light of the awareness. So, in other words, we replace blind impulses with conscious understanding and control. So, that's it for today. So, goodbye and see you on our next discussion.